Welcome back to the What's Not Sports podcast. Today we've got an inside story for you. It's our second guest of the 8 and 80 challenge, and I really enjoyed this interview. Today we got to dive in and have a chat with Swimming Australia coach Ethan Forge. Right now he is running his own paraswim program based in Brisbane. He's also a sports and exercise scientist. And on top of that, he's done a lot of work with QAS with the U for 2032 program. So we get to sit down, dive into all those topics, and I hope you guys enjoy this interview as much as I enjoyed filming it and interviewing Ethan. So enjoy this, and we thank you, Ethan, for coming on the podcast. Welcome, guys, to What's Not Sports Inside Story. Today I'm joined by Swimming Australia, Paraswimming Australia coach Ethan Forge. Thank you very much for coming on.
No worries. Happy to be here.
Now, this will be a very exciting episode, getting to hear about your, pathway as a sports scientist into the coaching role you're in now and what you do. So, yeah, shall we begin?
Yeah, happy to. Let's get into it.
So, Ethan, you studied at UQ, right? And you did sport and exercise science. Can you give me a bit of background on why you wanted to go into that area?
Yeah, sure. So I went into uni after I finished high school. So I went to uni in 2018. I did my honours of a Bachelor's of Exercise and Sports Science honours leading through to 2022, so about 5 years. I went into that because during high school, sport was a big part of what I did growing up on the Sunshine Coast. Was very big into my basketball and athletics and cross country, and I found I was really enjoying the science side of high school. And to keep it simple, I like sport and I like science. So to hear that there was a career path and a degree that had both those words in it seemed pretty appealing. And yeah, I ended up applying for a few different unis, and I got accepted into my first pick at UQ. And then, yeah, that's how I started in 2018.
Yeah, wow. Pretty exciting to get into uni, well, your first pick, especially for a highly contested, degree. But while you were studying, you did, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did one of your pracs with QAS?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that and your opportunities that you gained from doing that prac?
Yeah, it was really formative practicum placement I did. So it was 400 hours as UQ's like sports science degree requires. You have to do 140 hours with healthy population. So that's exercise assessment, prescription delivery, and then 400 hours, which is a bit more broad. And I ended up being accepted in at the Queensland Academy of Sport to do a placement in SEM 2. In that time, it was a really amazing opportunity just to see how like broad the sports science world really is. You hear all the time about strength and conditioning, so what you do in the gym, and you hear about coaching quite often, but getting to see, physiologists and biomechanists and skill acquisition specialists and performance analysts who all have a similar degree of qualification that I was aspiring to complete was really eye-opening to be able to work alongside and learn and shadow from all of those world-leading experts. And yeah, it was a great experience for me to kind of just affirm myself that I really did want to go into high performance sport. Not that it would be easy. It's a tough field to get into. Obviously, it's a highly saturated market, but it definitely just kept me going, knowing that this is where I wanted to end up at some point.
Yeah, wow. And after you did your prac and then graduated uni, you then did you go straight into working with QAS?
It was kind of like a transition period. So, for a bit of background, my first experience with QS was actually before my placement. There was a newly formed talent and coaching unit or team in the QAS around, I want to say 2021, 2022 roughly. And they had just launched a talent search program called U for 2032. And in that, this unit reached out to the universities looking for final year or recent graduates of sports and exercise science degrees to be involved as contractors, to help deliver the test, travel across Queensland and try and unearth the next Olympic and Paralympic champions. So I was fortunate enough to I applied for that and I was successful, and I got to start working around the QAS. I was very much on the road a lot of times, going out to rural Queensland as well as the metropolitan area. And from that experience, I then was able to make relationships, help secure my placement, and then from there, I actually didn't go straight into the QAS. I kept doing my talent search work, but I actually took up a full time role at the University of Queensland at UQ Sport, managing their fitness centre, so elite athletes, S&C, personal training, group fitness, and so on. So I
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
directly into sports science, but I was definitely around the world of sport, which is what I wanted.
Yeah, wow. And I'm really glad you brought up the UFA 2032 program and how you were in that testing program and all of that. Um, can you tell me a bit more about your role in that and what, like, I guess, if you can give us a bit of the science behind it and what you guys are actually testing for and looking for in athletes?
Yeah, look, the inspiration around the Youth for 2032 program, from what I've come to learn, it was centered around trying to give another opportunity to athletes. As we know, in Australia, we're a big sporting nation, but not all of our sports are played or broadcasted as readily available. You know, like rugby league and rugby union, netball, and so on. Those sports are quite large, but other Olympic and Paralympic sports may not be as well known. So I guess the initiative behind this program was to try and create a parallel pipeline to identify people who may have the potential for success in those sports and may not be as well known. So in that role, I was a talent officer. So in that, my main function was to deliver tests. So we would do some physical tests, looking at your strength, your endurance, your power, and then looking now as the program has evolved into a few extra assessments, looking at more nuanced things in sport like coordination, balance,
Mm.
those sorts of elements. So as the program goes on, it keeps improving, it keeps refining its tests and what it's looking for, but then it's a close
Yeah.
partnership with sports who kind of are getting a better understanding of what they're looking for, who might have what it takes to be a future Olympian or Paralympian. The Youth 2032 program is able to partner closely with national and state-based sports to kind of address those gaps and help fill them.
Yeah, wow. That's really interesting and really cool, and obviously a great pathway for our youth in Queensland to look forward to those Olympics. And I guess it's such a cool opportunity. And you say the role, well, the program keeps evolving. Um,
Mm.
that's just awesome to see that it is still going on and it wasn't just short lived.
Mm. Yeah, look, to be honest, one of the things now that I'm working full time for Swimming Australia, but in partnership with Queensland Academy of Sport, which I'm sure we'll go into.
Mm.
But one of the things I really love seeing, just from the helping out as little as I do now, is the evolution of the program. They've just released a talent search app called the UFA 2032 app, which uses artificial intelligence to allow people to film
Wow.
themselves in their own backyards with some of those tests we've been doing. And it's been great because from lived experience, it's 3 years traveling around rural Queensland. It's really tough to get out to rural communities and be there for a consistent amount of time. We would travel and we might only able to be in a certain town for like one afternoon. So if you've got to hope that you're available that day, your parents can get you to that testing session.
Yeah.
So it was like an accepted limitation that we always knew we wanted to address. And seeing now that we've developed an app that if you have a phone, you're able to test yourself now, means that we're just trying to provide more and more opportunities to the whole of Queensland, and also making sure that we're trying to remove as many barriers as possible to give everyone a fair go.
Oh, wow. That is actually really awesome. I didn't know about that app. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, Now let's move on a little bit. And you just mentioned you now with Swimming Australia being a para coach. How did that come around?
Look, like most things, it was all coincidence and opportunity. To be honest, it definitely wasn't a pre-planned strategy. Essentially, a part of the funding that's come towards the 2032 games has been around in parasport, para uplift. So a big movement across the country to try and remove some of those barriers that our athletes are currently experiencing, to try and ensure that we give our athletes an opportunity to get involved with sport, both at a recreational grassroots level, but more so in my role now towards the high performance and pathways programs to make sure we've got athletes ready for when we do have the Paralympics here in Brisbane. So there was a job listing or an expression of interest that went up at the end of last year for any para experts or people in the field of sport that know something about para are essentially very broad to express their interest in a role, and they all come in different shapes and sizes of the roles. And for me, I was fortunate enough to be accepted in for Swimming Australia as one of 4 swimming coaches that are across Queensland that are trying to help address some of those barriers.
Yeah, wow. That's a pretty awesome role to be in. And can you tell me how, like, it's a little bit different to your sports and science, but how have you tied that into
Mhm.
it?
It's been a great learning experience. So like yeah, I did my undergraduate in sports science, but while I was doing that, before I got involved with the QAS, I was a swim coach. I
Oh,
did
wow.
the qualification. I was working at UQ Sport, doing like the master swim squads and some of the junior squads, as well as doing some strength conditioning. So I've been around the swimming space for quite a long time now, roughly about 6 years, and in that, now taking on this role back into filling those coaching shoes, it's been a great
Mm,
opportunity to try and tie together all my experiences, understanding how not only the coach and athlete interact and how they get results and support, I guess, their performance, but also the support team around them. So the roles I've held as well means that I'm feeling confident in my position to be able to understand what an athlete needs holistically.
yeah, wow. And talking on the needs of athletes, para
Mm.
athletes do tend to have a lot of, I guess, different training to what a different athlete in a different program might have. Could you tell me a bit of
Yeah.
that and the support given around para athletes and how you might have to change sessions?
Yeah, look, it's definitely something that I've been able to build my knowledge in, and something that's still growing. Like I've put my hand up. I'm here as someone who doesn't live with a disability, working with a population of people
Mm,
who do. So to be honest, the first thing I focus on is making sure the athlete has a voice. So the
yeah.
athlete is the expert on themselves, I always say, and their opinion is the most important. I've got this knowledge around the sports science and the coaching, which I think can help. And it's very much a partnership on how we make sure the athlete's supported. So whether it's an athlete in a wheelchair and you need to consider, allowing extra time before and after a session for the athlete to get changed or to transfer, or you have an athlete with low vision or vision impairment, and so you need to consider, making sure the athlete is safe to enter the venue, or when you train, you make sure nobody else is in the lane with them, or you
Mm,
communicate when we're doing technical work in swimming, it's typically quite visual. So for
yeah.
someone with a vision impairment, it's important that we make sure we find other ways that best suit that person and what they'd like and how they'd like to be coached to make sure they get the most out of the experience as well. So they're just a few examples that I've got off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
know that in this space, it's a area of growth. Everyone's
Mm,
learning, everyone's really passionate. I think that's the biggest thing I found amongst the people who share similar roles or in similar positions to me in the para space. Everyone's so passionate. We all
yeah.
have that shared ambition to try and not only support the athletes with impairments, but just in general the people. People first, a mentality with it.
Yeah.
And if we can get that right, I think we're on the right track.
And on that, have you had to adapt your coaching style quite a bit or not as much? What compared to coaching your juniors and masters that you were, how much has your coaching style changed?
Yeah, look, quite a bit. So while I was at UQ, I did get the opportunity to work in a research program that was with paraswimmers. So that was high support knee and cerebral palsy. The program was called Parastart, and it's a fantastic program that's still growing to this day, and it's trying to provide allied health support and research to this demographic. And in that, that was my first formal experience of swim coaching. So that was almost my foundation. And then as I picked up those other experiences, I started to understand how it works in the able-bodied community. But like today with the athletes I work with, I'm finding a lot of times my the ways I think a session can run will always get challenged in a positive way. Like I get surprised that actually we can approach it this way, or if you can't tell already, I'm a bit of a chatter, a bit of a yapper. And so for my athletes with vision impairment, sometimes it's important for me to learn how to keep things concise and simple. I might pull them out of the water and help them move through a movement so they can feel it, or making sure that athletes have an opportunity to voice their feelings of how a set went, or a lap, or a race effort, for example. and making sure they can give me insight that I won't see from outside the pool. So those are probably the biggest takeaways I've seen in my coaching approach or philosophy evolving, but it's something that I think isn't exclusive to parasport. I think these are traits that all coaches can adapt, and the paraspace just requires you to have a little bit better understanding of how that person's unique physiology might adapt or change how they approach tasks that you might take for granted.
And on that, it obviously would provide a bit of a challenge having to adapt to all these different styles you're talking about. Do you enjoy that challenge?
Yeah, look, it's something that I've always enjoyed because for me, I'm a problem solver at heart. It's something I do love going into situations trying to find solutions, and I love collaboration. That's the other part too, teamwork. Making the dream work. So I very much like having people come along the journey with me. So whether that's the athletes, whether it's parents, whether it's performance support, um, everyone working together towards a common goal. And I think for me, I'm really enjoying the opportunity that working in the space and this role in Gen 2032 with Swimming Australia has provided to not only address what I'm seeing in my DPE, so daily performance environment, so the pool, but also on a larger scale, getting to connect with other Swimming Australia and other sports on a national level to see how we can kind of address some of those gaps that are shared problems or shared experiences across other sports.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And now talking about how you can, I guess, share ideas with other coaches and other para sports, how important is it to have these programs for all these different athletes?
Yeah, it's huge. I truly believe it's going to be one of the underpinning successes to how 2032 goes for us because what I've experienced in the Gen 2032 program, we have, I don't know the exact number, I think we have 14 to 15 coaches across 9 different sports, all focused on para. And we're very fortunate with what the Queensland Academy Sport has provided us in a space where we can do social learning and we all come together every 3 months and we get to talk about our experiences over the last 3 months about working with our athletes, working with venues and parents, and also the wins we've had, the things that we're struggling with, and having that support network and being able to connect has been huge. So more programs that create connection across sports is only going to help Australia in the long run because a better educated coach who can understand how to problem solve from the learnings that other sports have will make sure that we can provide more positive and inclusive and I guess fond memories for people who are in the sport to look back on when they leave, and make sure that they leave the sport better than how they entered.
Yeah, wow. And on that, I guess, is that your main, role or even goal as a coach?
Yeah, look, mine's definitely around that. Recently we had to do up what our coaching philosophy, what we think it is, and that's supposed to be like a 1 to 2 sentence mantra, I guess, that kind of looks at if this is what we believe coaching to be from our perspective. And mine's centered around those key themes around, through curiosity and being, inclusive. As coaches, we try and create an environment and a space for athletes to realize their potential of who they, what's the wording, I guess, more so they can be the best version of themselves now and work towards who they want to be in the future.
Yeah,
And,
wow.
it's none of that mentions actual sport performance, like winning medals, but at the end of the day, it's going in swimming, we say a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. So
Yeah.
making sure that we keep the person first at the forefront of what we do usually aligns quite closely to performance then.
Yeah, wow. That is such a, I guess, a cool perspective and, I guess, aim as a coach to really focus on how the swimmer and the athlete's feeling is. Yeah, it's just really cool perspective on it all. Now, with the program,
Mm.
what are your aspirations for your athletes? Is it the next Paralympics in LA or the Brisbane one? Is it more short term, long term? Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so in the program we're in now, we'll be officially launching something in February, which will be a larger scale program in partnership with Rackley Swimming. That's the program that in my appointment with Swimming Australia, I'm based with Rackley and the swim team at a pool in Parkinson, so in the southern side of Brisbane.
Mm.
And in that, we're hoping to launch an official squad program that targets not only the performance side, but also the development pathways in a community branch.
Yeah,
But look, the current goals we have now, we've got a swim meet this weekend for three of my athletes who we're focusing on getting some good times there and getting some practice in with some of our race strategies. And then States is our next focus. But regarding Paralympics, we're very much looking at the next 12 months ahead of us. We acknowledge that, to make it to the Paralympics, it's such a tough, it's the best of the best in the world. It's such a tough journey, but it's definitely one worth taking.
Yeah.
And so as I'm only started in this role since April and, just getting into a flow with my small group of athletes I have out at Rackley and Parkinson, we're focusing on very much getting into a flow as a team, as a cohesive unit, and then seeing how that translates to when we need to perform. So at those races, at comps, and making sure we're prepared for hopefully nationals in April next year. And there's some cool opportunities coming up. Like in February, Australia will be hosting the very first standalone para swimming event with the World Para Swimming coming through to run one of their World Cup events in February at the Gold Coast. And don't think I have any of my athletes in that just yet, but it'll be a great opportunity for them to see that where they want to go. Seeing it. To see it, it makes it attainable, means something you can reach for, and having it at the Gold Coast and it being a standalone event for the first time in para swimming is massive.
Wow, that just I guess it turns the lights on a little bit more, makes the whole setting, I guess, more obtainable. Would you say, having that event?
Yeah, it's very much so. It's got to be that our athletes, especially in Australia, we see all the competition happen out off our shores. We have athletes traveling quite often. And look, sometimes in para sport, depending on the person, travel can be a bit of a daunting process. So being able to have something on home soil that's close for our athletes to be involved with and just be inspired by is huge, and making sure we keep this momentum up leading into the 2028 LA Paralympics all the way through to 2032 games here on our home soil.
Yeah, wow. It's just, I guess, so many more things to consider in that space, but it's also exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing time, not only just to be in swimming, but just in sport in general in this country. And I'm really happy to see that para sports getting the time of day to kind of flourish and grow with federal support and national sports getting behind it. And we're having a real uplift movement supporting our athletes and our staff. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So all exciting. Can you tell me a bit more what the Australian standalone para swimming event will be like?
Yeah. Yeah, so looking at my notes here to make sure I get the naming right. So we're going to have a Para World Series event here on the Gold Coast from 20th of Feb to the 22nd. It was going to attract swimmers from across the world to one of Australia's premier aquatic event venues. And one of the big strengths of this event is that the Gold Coast Aquatic Centre is outdoors. And leading into LA, the Paralympic swimming will be held at a temporary venue, and that's an outdoor pool. So this will be the only, stop in the World Series event in para swimming where it'll be an outdoor pool. So it's going to drive a lot of attention for swimmers across the world to come in and get, a bit of a practice run in for what it's going to be like. And also having more exposure and more media coverage over these types of events are going to help motivate those athletes who might not even realize they're eligible for para sport yet. So the more we can keep having para sport being on a platform that's well seen and, spoken about, and it becomes a part of, the classic lunchroom conversations about, did you see this sporting event that just happened? Or did you see that swim on the weekend? The more we can make that into the Australian rhetoric and kind of the normal conversations that we have about sport, the better it's going to be for our athletes in the community who aren't in the sport yet, but could be a medalist by the time we get to 2032. The whole point of why QAS is running that talent search program is to try and give opportunities for the people who don't realize there's a pathway in front of them.
Yeah, wow. And that is just going to be such an awesome event. Now, back to your training squad. You as a coach, I guess with the whole idea of this World Swimming event coming here, the LA Games, and the Brisbane Games eventually. As a coach, what are you going to do to continue to improve your program and, I guess, attract more athletes?
It's a good question. Look, it centers around some key pillars to it. So at the moment, we're in a development phase. So we started in my role in April. The last 6 months have been trying to understand the lay of the land, but also the community I'm around. So I'm originally from Sunshine Coast. I've been living in Brisbane, but the suburbs and the local community around me is one I haven't been around before. So it's been a huge thing to make sure I connect with the community to understand how a program that creates opportunities for people to get involved with swimming, regardless of their ability, what place that has in the community to make sure it's of a benefit. And then from that point, from that development, we want to see it grow. And that's got to come from not just getting the biggest name athletes into the pool and swimming fast, but also from the grassroots. So our Learn to Swim programs, at Parker's, they recently won Facility of the Year, which is a huge nod to how well that venue operates, both in a physical sense of the actual building, but also the people inside of it. So the staff, the care they take. And so it's something that, looking at how we're going to grow and develop, acknowledging that we need to get it right at the Learn to Swim level, and then the junior squads then into performance. We can't have the performance without that underpinning layer.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and you're absolutely right about, I guess, growing the grassroots first so you can have a healthy product, not just of your more mature athletes, but those younger ones as well. Now, I guess I've got one more question. On your calendar this year, what is, I guess, the event you as a coach are looking most forward to having your athletes race at? What is it?
Look, it's got to be nationals in April. I think that's going to be huge for my athletes. My main three that I'm working with at the moment, all three of them have already set qualifying times, which is great. Oh, wow. So we know they're going to be there. So now it's just about refining our race strategy leading into that event to make the most of it. That's probably on a coaching level where I see my athletes competing. But yeah, that event in February is going to be massive for the community and just Australian swimming in general. To see all the international countries coming in and wanting to swim at the Gold Coast and really make a spectacle of it over the 3 days will be amazing. So I know I'll be there as a fan and I'll be sitting in the stands watching. And then, hoping to bring some of my athletes along as well so they can see what they're aspiring to.
Yeah, wow, that'll be incredible. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of the day to sit down with me to do the podcast. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before I let you go?
Look, probably just the only thing I'll throw in there is something that I wish I heard when I was going through my uni degree. And if anyone listening is going through sports science now, definitely the field of high performance sport is tough to get into. It's very much you do the time and you develop your confidence, but it's also about networks and understanding the system and what roles need to be filled. But one of the things I took away from an early mentor of mine, like teaching me, was around about you say yes to everything you can, but it's also about making sure that you don't pigeonhole yourself too early into what you think you're going to be. Like when I left Sunshine Coast to come study at UQ, I thought I was going to be a strength conditioning coach for the Broncos. That was the aspiration of a kid who loved NRL growing up, and the Broncos were my team. And I only knew of S&C in the sports space. I was like, great, that's what I'm going to do. Now I get to work at Swimming Australia as a para swim coach. It's something completely unrelated, but I couldn't be happier. And I think it's the right spot for me, and it allows me to kind of play to my strengths and use what I learned in my uni time. So for any students who are going through that experience trying to figure out, well, I don't know where my job's going to be, or I'm graduating in a year and I don't know where my options are, it's always about saying yes to what you can, but then also understanding yourself quite well. Like, what do you love to do? And if it's working with people, then that's enough of a starting point to help you kind of find those opportunities.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Thank you very much for the advice, and hopefully some of our listeners take that advice as well.
No worries. Thank you for having me, Will. Really appreciate it. It's been great being on the podcast.
It's awesome to have you on, Ethan. So I'll wrap up the recording there. Well, that's the end of today's interview with Ethan Ford. We'd like to extend our thanks to him for coming on to the podcast. I really enjoyed having this interview with Ethan. It brought a lot of new perspectives to light for me, and it was a very interesting topic to discuss through what he's done with now para swimming and what he has done in the past with the U for 2032 program with QAS. So it was fantastic to have him on the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed the interview as much as I did. So that's our second of 8 in 80 challenge. Stay tuned for what's next on the pod. I'll see you guys in the next episode.